Hi, it's me again with Corel Draw Tips and Tricks, and this is part two to engrave something larger than your laser bit. I've only done this a couple of times, and it's a little concerning, and if you don't do it right, you could really mess up. But this is how I would do it. We've already split the logo in half, and so I'm going to nudge both sides of the logo out. Now, I do not know if he's going to do this on a square piece of wood. Um, each section is 23 and a half by 12.875. So I don't know if he's going to try to do it on a round piece of wood or a square piece of wood. It doesn't really matter, but there's several things you're going to do, and I'm going to do one right here. I'm going to hit P and put that new one in the center of the page. Now, before we do that, I'm going to put this one in the center of the page. This is going to be the easiest one to do if you're going to engrave it on two pieces of wood, let's say. You can grab that corner and have it snap to that corner. Okay? That's easy. And then if you ran that, the only thing concerning if you would engrave all the way to the edge. So you might want to do a couple of tests, and later on I'm going to show maybe a test. Now the other one is a little bit more difficult, but it's not impossible because there's no handle up here that you can move. You have to move this one because there's no square corner, but you can have it snap to that one. And if you remember, our object is 12.875 and this is 18. So let's get the calculator out and go 18. I think you have to do plus, then minus 12.875 gives you only 5.125. So we're going to change our nudge factor to 5.125. Easiest to remember. 5.125. That's our new nudge factor. It's on this corner, so we can nudge it to that corner, and now this is going to be your top dead center. My only concern, if your laser isn't indexed or calibrated perfectly, that this is going to engrave. So one consideration would be to move them down both a quarter of an inch, and depending on your size of your wood, or here's another option. Let's do this. Okay, I need to put my nudge factor back to 25. And let's move this one out of the way. What you can do is go to Object, Group, and Ungroup Object, and then do the boundary tool. So we're going to select everything, which is already selected, to do the boundary tool. You get it all blacks it out, but that's fine in this case. We're going to move that over. We're going to group this back, Control G. We're going to take that new shape and go left click, right click, and now we have a hairline around that object. Now we can move it back and move both of them back. Now you could test that on your laser with a hairline and leave your door open and see if it doesn't match up to your wood. Now, the laser is not going to, if your laser is perfectly calibrated in a line, the laser is not going to let you burn right on the ruler. So you might have to move the whole thing. Let's move it 1.25 inches. Grab the whole thing and move it down and even move it over and run it like that and watch and do a test. Let's move it back to 25 inches, and let's take that out of the way, and for a second we'll move this out of the way and move our hairline back. Do this with your lid open and get it where your wood is perfect. I hope that's understanding. Your laser will trace that if you have a red dot pointer, and he does with a helix, an epilogue helix, he does, and you can trace it right along that wood. Now keep in mind you might want to fudge this up a little bit because your spaces between the two logos could somehow disappear, but you want to definitely engrave on this leading edge. This leading edge is going to engrave because it's on the bottom, but it's the top engraving that's going to be the most critical. So you could do the same thing to the other one. And if you use the same principle, we know that that is in the center and right where it should be. So we can do the exact same thing with group, ungroup, use the boundary tool, move it out of the way, make it a hairline, and move it back. And now you can do the exact same thing. And what I would do is move it back to 0.125 and move the whole thing down and over, and then run you a test on your wood. If you're doing this on a round object, this would work perfectly. You know, this leading edge has to be engraved, and you could actually cheat a little bit here and engrave this a little bit further. You could extend this engravable part just so ever so minutely, especially if it doesn't engrave. Let's just go over that real quick. I wasn't planning on doing that, but let's take, we need to go back to 25 inches. I hope I'm not going to go too far here, but you could grab, let's set our nudge on 0.125. Okay, we're going to take our shape tool and select this. Don't touch those two nodes, just touch those two nodes, select them, and move it down 0.125. Okay, now let's take it back to 25 inches, move that back, and you can see we've got a little flex room with some engraving. If it did not engrave, there's nothing from stopping you to take your Smart Fill tool and fill that in with black. And then you have a little extra engraving to make sure it engraves all the wood, because the distance between these letters and the bottom of the deal isn't going to be that important. That's why you would not want to split the letters up. Anyway, I hope that helped him a little bit, and hope it's not too confusing, and good luck with this project. Just one word of warning, this is a lot of engraving. This is going to take some time. Anyway, thank you for watching.